All right, everybody. Welcome to the Boss and the Brewer podcast, episode number 31. So on this week's episode, the boss man is away judging in Melbourne at the AIBA Beer Awards. And we've got a new boss in town, and his name is Leon Perkin, or Perko, and he's about to come online on time, which is very strange for this podcast because normally the boss is late. There he is.
Hello. I thought I was on time, but sometimes it's not easy to get welcomed into these things.
I like your backdrop there. I used to have those same walls with the little thing running along the middle between the boards.
Yeah, this is an old, I think 50s house, and I think back in those days they used to have the joining things to connect the boards because they constructed the walls in panels, so something along those lines. That's my understanding.
Well, if there are any, because the house that I had that I just knocked down was a 50s house as well.
Yeah,
and it was before I suppose it's before I don't know when gyprock was invented, but it's before gyprock where everything was smooth. And my walls were made out of masonite, which I imagine yours probably are.
Could be.
It's just like it's like wood, but you can't kind of smooth it out. You just basically have to cover it up.
Yeah.
So you have that little bead running across the middle there. It's cool.
Yeah, look, the character of our place is pretty cool. It's got a vibe to it, and I'm quite happy with it. I mean, it's been well maintained and well renovated, and we continue to sort of tinker with it, but I'm not super handy, so I'm glad there's nothing major to worry about. So
yeah, those houses are pretty solid. Mine was infested by termites, completely rotten, like literally falling over. And I lived in it for 5 years. And when they finally knocked it down, like I've got a video of it, they just kind of tapped it and the whole thing just went
fell apart. Yeah. It's funny because I'd seen kind of photos of you living in that I actually remember, and I think I've got my facts right, but I think I recall when you bought that place. And you posted, I bought this house, and I remember thinking, wow, that's sort of maybe a bit of a shit box, but in an amazing spot. And it was, and here we are 2 years later. And and the dream place is coming together. Yeah.
It is. We've got the lexicon locked in. I went in there on the weekend. I had a look at the half lexicon. So it's going to be half lexicon inside, and full lexicon outside.
Okay. I was trying to get my facts straight before I came on to tonight's podcast because there's been a lot of changes with the lexicon, and that whole thing has been so long-winded in your series of episodes that I've got some sort of I've got some patches of misinformation, and I'm not sure where you've ended up, but I did see a few days ago you posted some kind of a split in the two options. Is that based on is that to do somewhat with natural light and the way that the lexicon and half lexicon looks, or what was the decision there?
It is a little bit, but mainly I just wanted to make sure I had half lexicon because of everything that's happened on this podcast. That's basically the reason.
Okay, so this whole debacle, you wanted to claim a bit of both so that in hindsight you can look back and then you'll know which is the preferred tone, I suppose.
Yes.
Once you've lived in and around it. So
yeah, and if Hendo came to my house and it had Snowy Mountains Quarter, I could just imagine the look on his face when he saw it and judged me, and I didn't want that.
No. And so if he kicks up a stink when he does visit, you can send him to the side of the house where he feels most comfortable under the half lexicon.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh wow. Yeah, okay.
You got a beer there, mate? Oh,
I do.
We should explain. Hendo's at the ABAs. I did a little bit of an intro before I opened, but Hendo's at the ABAs, and he said, "Do you want Perko to fill in?" I'm like, if he's available, and you were gracious enough to put your hand up. So cheers for that.
No worries. I do have a beer. This is typically I jump on here and say,
hey, Full Heart shirt on.
I do. Thanks to Reese, because maybe the second or third stop at GABS Festival on the weekend, I dropped by 4 Hearts, and Reese kind of was nice enough to gift me a shirt, which was rather cool. I said I wanted to buy one, and I was willing to buy one, but he sort of slipped me the shirt. So I do have one, and I really rate their beers and love the venue and like the pocket that they're operating in. So quite happy to rep that. So
that's a cool bit of irony, because Wade was one of the comments last week on the episode was, is Gabs gone too far? And Wade's one of the founders of 4 Hearts and did that that Wabbit Saison, the carrot Saison, a couple of years ago that went viral around the whole world.
Oh, right. Okay.
And yeah, so were they doing something crazy this year, or?
I don't even know, because, so we went over to 4 Hearts, and I literally was just chatting to Reese, who's their head brewer now. And I said, oh, what do you got going? What should I try? And he literally said, oh, you've got to try the Imperial Porter, their Baltic or Imperial Porter. And he just slipped me a taster of that, and I kind of stood back while others came in, and I just had that. Look, I'll be honest, before we even go into the whole GABS thing, the way I tend to do GABS is I don't really focus on like tick, tick, tick. I wander. Yeah. And most of it's about seeing people, catching up with people. I did try the Black Ops beer, but I only tried about maybe 5 or 6 actual festival beers. Other than that, I mean, I found like it was a 50-50 mix of trying beers that were new or ones I hadn't had from brewers, or just classics that I actually just felt like drinking, like just a beer that was dead set, the sort of thing I wanted to have in my hand as I wandered around and caught up with sort of the industry folks or the breweries and whoever. So that was basically the way I did it. But
before we get too deep into that, you got a beer there?
Yeah, I do. And I was going to say it's one I actually paid for. It's show you. It's Slow Lane Brewing.
So wait, no, need to get the photo for the
Yeah.
There we go. Brilliant.
Go for it. So Slow Lane Brewing. They're out of New South Wales, and I actually signed up for their membership program. They've got a really good value membership program. It's about $59 a month, and the first package had like two custom glasses and something like 6 or 8 beers, maybe more than that. All interesting, kind of mostly Belgian-inspired type styles or hybrids. And I've drunk a few of them. I got through a few of them on Mother's Day, sitting around, and it's literally been like every one has been a heavy strike, like a big tick.
Yeah, right.
So massively rate that brewery, hugely underrated in Australia, flying under the radar a little bit. I think sort of wanted to give them a plug because I think legitimately they are doing good things and deserve it. So, and I'm really enjoying this beer.
Nice. Not a sponsored post.
No, and I do have a couple of other beers sort of tucked away here to grab
just in case
after this potentially. We'll see how we go. And they are the 3 I've got there, which get through 3 more beers, but the other ones I put down here are all sponsored beers.
Oh, nice.
So we'll see how we go. What about yourself there?
Well, I've got Hornet for a couple of reasons. One is I drank the sponsored beers. I think I drank all 4 of that wild IPA from Helios last week because I couldn't stop fucking drinking. It was that good.
You guys were absolutely raving about it. I thought I better listen to last week's episode today. So I did that before I jumped on, so I had some insight. But
nice.
when I did have a listen, you guys just kept kind of banging on about that beer. So got me really thirsty for it. And I kind of the guys from Helios actually said drop in and grab some, and I just haven't squeezed it into my schedule. So hopefully they don't run out.
It's a busy life being a beer influencer. There's a lot going on.
It's the thing is, it sounds silly, but it's just that finding that time in the day to actually actively drive to a brewery and pick up, even if the beers are free. It's I want to, but
time is
it
not
sounds
free.
silly. But the ones that send them here, I mean, it's just the convenience just notches up a bit because they just arrive, sort of thing. But anyway.
100%. The other reason I've got this, it's tasting really good, is we packed it today on our new canning line. It's about the third or fourth beer we've packed on the new line. So
Lovely.
Celebrating that. It's tasting really good.
Yeah, I got to say, like, I've been lucky a few times to, when I visit BH2, to, pop down to the canning line, and in my time, like, Gov's just slinging me a can or two, and it always just tastes so good there off the canning line. It's one thing about your beer particularly is just how, like, peak fresh it is when it comes off the canning line. I mean, it's just always, like, reliably good. So
you got like that kind of beer. You got to drink it fresh. I can't really drink it any other way.
Yeah, and I've had the occasional BH beer from a Dan Murphy's or whatever that's just a bit older, and it's just not quite the same.
Yeah, it's not quite
nothing.
the same.
But that's any brewery, and that's the unfortunate nature of just it taking too long, and that's kind of like the buyer's issue for not being more diligent as to what they're buying. But yeah.
I should mention though that I got an email from one of the Adam Shells today about more sponsorship. I think I actually feel bad. Like, I don't know if you feel bad when people send you free beer, but like getting free beer is a new thing to me. And I feel, especially when, like, Adam sent us 2 4-packs of brand new beer and 2 glasses each. Like, I was like, it's too generous. Like, there's not enough people that listen to this podcast to justify that.
Yeah, I do and I don't. I think it depends. It would be a tough one. I think you take some and you leave some. I mean, it depends on what they consider to be a valuable marketing angle. I think the Helios guys obviously feel like the rap they get on the cast kind of is a more kind of worthy rundown versus maybe, say, sending the same thing to, like, a bloke with an Instagram who takes a selfie and sort of gives a generic review and copy pastes notes.
3 out of 5.
Yeah, I guess my point is that there's a bit more of an active discussion from I don't know if you would call yourself and Hendo like more industry heavyweights. I suppose you've been around a long time. You've got stories more directly involved with the industry, so they might just base more weight on where you've come from and what you do and what you say about the beer. So I don't know, but it's funny because I'll get, say, samples from one brewery. They might send me a single can, and then occasionally you'll just get another brewery that sends like a whole case of beer. And it's like, you know what I mean? It's sort of it's up to them. If they want to do it, they do it. But I don't think you should feel like you owe them anything. I think you've just got to kind of embrace it as if it was in your own fridge and you'd purchased it and you were drinking it. But I try to be diplomatic about the way I review beers. Like, if I've got something negative to say, I'll sort of I'll be honest about that. Like, I don't, just say everything's fantastic because it didn't cost me anything. I think it's important.
So what if you got, because it's different with the way you're doing the beer tasting. I mean, not beer tasting, but it's different the way you're presenting the content, because you're curating a photo and a post. It's different to drinking something live. So I guess you can decide, A, whether you even post about the beer at all, but B, exactly what you say. You can choose your words pretty carefully. But, like, say you got a beer that you didn't particularly like, what would you not post about it, or would you post and be diplomatic about it, or would you just be honest? And
I've done both, because I've been sent beers that I've taken a photo of, I've liked, and the beer I thought was average, and I thought,
like, you liked the photo?
Yeah, like I like the photo, and the beer deserved to be reviewed in a way that told my story about that beer. But I try not to tear it apart, like, as in, like, if I hate the beer, I'm probably not going to do that. I might just post it as a story and just kind of say, this beer, I drank this beer. It was an acknowledgement of a thing. But I like the most if I get, say, for instance, like, for example, I've got a beer down here from Frenchies, New South Wales. They sent me an 8-pack of mixed beers, right? So I can sort of try those beers, and there's going to be 1 or 2 in there I'm sure I'm going to like. Perhaps I may not like a novelty beer or two, but it's nice when you do get a mixed pack because you can kind of focus on reviewing maybe the one or the two that you felt were the ones that you really would want to buy with your own money. So yeah, it's a tricky thing to do.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Well, I'm new to it, you know, so I'm so grateful I'm getting sent free beer, but I don't want people to send too much because I feel like we don't have enough people that listen to it. But yeah.
The other thing is that sometimes you don't have enough time to kind of review it all. Like I'll sometimes just work through beers just with a couple of mates, and you're sort of just drinking it straight out of the can, and you're thinking, oh shit, I can't even remember what I thought about that beer anymore. But you know, you just do what you can, and it's not a bad little perk to have because it definitely widens your knowledge of beers. Often beers you either A, don't have access to, or B, you just wouldn't think of buying. And like yourself, you know, you've got your own sort of brewery there with almost probably a range that just about covers your entire drinking needs from sort of A to Z. And you think, well, why would I buy that? And, you know, why would I don't need to buy that.
Well, that's
because that's and so if you get sent it, it's a little bit of context. It's just a nice bit of context. You can kind of focus on that for something different. So yeah. Anyway,
well, I'm glad you used the word perk there, and I'm glad you mentioned owning your own brewery, because I hear you've got your own beer, or do you, or do we just make this up? I don't know anything about this.
I heard you guys talking about this last week, and so basically I got a message from Smokey, and he said, oh, yeah, guess what? So we're brewing this GABS beer. It's a taurine and guarana sour beer. It's going to be called Tirana. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's a good name. That makes sense. And he goes, do you want to see the label? And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. So he springs this like label on me just with this giant Perko with lightning bolts around it. And I'm like, oh, get fucked sort of thing. Yeah, but basically I do think it was a bit of a cheeky nod to me and perhaps my brother as well, being sort of nicknamed Perko around the beer scene. But, you know, it does, as you said, kind of correlate to that whole perking you up thing, and obviously pay a certain nod to a very famous reddish energy drink. I'm not sure if we're allowed to mention it. So, but yeah, that was the first beer I actually tried at GABS Festival as well. I mean, it was sort of like it was what I had to do, walk in there.
Sure, you didn't have to pay for that one.
I did.
You fucking what?
Well, no, because it was
from the container bar.
It was only on at the container bar.
Okay.
But in full disclosure, and talking about perks, full disclosure, GABS did send me some free tickets, but they sent me the VIP tickets. So the VIP tickets came with like $50 credit. So per ticket.
That's cool.
So it just meant that you can spend $50 on beer. So I used their money to buy
your own beer.
But I would have paid for it had I not got that. So
So when you ordered the beer, did you say, "Do you know who I am?" Or you didn't?
It's not how I operate.
Okay.
Gee whiz! God, what do you take me for, Jack?
No, right. How was the beer?
It was really good. I mean, it tasted exactly like it was meant to.
Yeah.
They absolutely nailed the brief. I heard a couple of people say, oh, that's not for me, but that was because they didn't feel like drinking like, you know, an energy drink basically. But if you felt like that, it was perfect for what it was. Like it was a beer that tasted like an energy drink that nailed the brief 100%. And I personally really enjoyed it. I would have got more if I could have been bothered lining up at the containers, but I was mostly just happy checking out the stands and, you know, chatting as I got a beer from some of the people that I don't see very often. So I think that's not for me is basically the story of every GABS beer. That's the whole point of GABS, isn't it? It's kind of, you know, you try a whole bunch of weird shit. Some of it you like, and some of it you're like, Yeah, and I think there was a couple that I genuinely think I would have really liked. But the trouble was that some of them were really quite boozy, you know, like for example, like the Deeds did one, which was, I think it was a bourbon barrel aged stout, and it was 14% or something like that, called Ritual, and like that's right up my alley. But at like 11 a.m. in the morning, drinking one of those, like you're setting yourself up for being sort of stumbling out of there or basically falling over before you get to the door. So I just think it's a real heavy beer, and I would have liked to try it, but I got lost on me, and I think the thing with GABS is there's a lot of novelty beers, but it's the ones that manage to nail those novelties in a way that's really palatable and accurate, that kind of get the accolades, because they don't end up like straight sugar water or fairy floss, or you know what I mean? Some of them just go really into that territory of like barely drinkable and far too something, far too sweet, far too sour, far too acidic, far too, you know what I mean? Excessive. So
well, I'm the same as you, like other than probably my first GABS I went to, like the first one I got the booklet, I looked at all the beers I wanted to try, I got the tasting paddles and had little shots of God knows how many beers. But other than that one, which was many, many years ago in Melbourne, GABS is very different for me now. I do exactly what you described, which is you kind of walk around, you catch up with people. Let's be honest, if you go on that first day in that daytime session and you're in the industry, you get given a fair bit of beer. Like
you do,
so it's just a good, fun, like social thing. So quite like the last few years of GABS, I don't even really know if I've had really probably even any of the actual GABS beers. But yeah, I think this year I was sort of thinking maybe I'll change it, because I looked at the lineup. I was like, because I didn't go on the weekend, but I am going to go to Melbourne.
I saw that, or I heard that.
But yeah, I thought this year maybe I'll change it up. Maybe I'll get the list and circle some off and try ones I want to try, just because that's kind of the point of GABS.
It is, and also the novelties done well are in many ways where beer is unfortunately or fortunately, depending how you look at it, kind of heady, so if people are doing these wacky zany beers, that's kind of, and they're doing them well, then that's inspiration, and it's probably good for you to be aware of. There's a lot of those sorts of beers on the list, and for me it's just that if the breweries have them on at their stands, that's a lot more convenient. Like I did try most of the beers I tried, the festival beers were at the stands. So I say, oh, you've got your festival beer on, I'll give that a little shot and see how I went. And some of them were super pleasant. So, it was just for the first sort of, I'd say half to 2/3 of the session, it was like, there was always queues. Everyone wanted to do the paddles and work through
at the container, you mean, or just everywhere?
Sorry, the containers.
The containers,
they're just busy for quite a while, just with everyone trying to queue up and like get those tick through all the paddles, and that just took a long time. So I just couldn't be bothered with that. I think the best way to play it's probably just wander around early on, try what you want to try, and then kind of come back to those containers maybe about halfway to the later end of the session, keep some in reserve, and then start working out what you want to try, as well as maybe talking to the people at the festival who have had some, and get some recommendations. And then by that halfway point, you've kind of got, I've got to try the dollar bill, or I've got to try the ether, or whatever it is. And then you've kind of got some direction with what you're doing. So
I think that's very good advice. So overall, because I didn't get along, but overall, you thought GABS was good, or?
Yeah. It's only my second Brisbane GABS, and it's really hard to compare it to Melbourne, because Melbourne is such a...
You went to the daytime session or the night session?
The daytime session. I almost thought about going back in. I kind of could have got back in, but it was just, I think I was probably pretty tipsy then, and we popped out after the first session, had a couple of beers at Saccharomyces, and then it was, home time was a good idea.
Probably,
So, I did the daytime session. I mean, it's never going to be like the Melbourne one based on the spectacle element, but it's you know, in terms of the people and the vibe, it's amazing. And it feels really good in Brisbane because you've got a lot of interstate breweries here feeling like excited to be in Queensland. And I think there's an energy that's good. So it was a really positive experience. Definitely quieter than I probably remember the last time being.
Interesting. So the session you went to, at least from the numbers I've seen, was almost twice as busy as the afternoon session.
Yeah, well, I've heard that. I heard that the afternoon session was very dead. So potentially, I mean, if you wanted to be more efficient with your time, the afternoon session might have been the better choice. But I think a lot of people opted with that daytime session with Mother's Day the next day and all the rest of it. I think people were making early plans, or they kind of, you know, looking to get home to their wives or whatever it might have been. So it makes sense that that was the way it was. But it is sort of.
I just wonder, well, you're from Melbourne, not from Melbourne, but you were in Melbourne for a long time, probably the whole time GABS was running.
I was in Melbourne for about 9 years.
Yeah.
So I moved back. I moved back a year ago. So
it's different, isn't it? Like it's just a different thing.
It is a different thing. It's just I'll give you an example. It's like seeing an AFL game at the MCG and then seeing one at the Gabba.
Metricon.
It's like, or maybe on a lesser extent, going to Metricon, going to anyway, a local stadium.
Metricon and MCG is a perfect example because I've been to a bunch of games, Gold Coast Suns games at Metricon.
Yeah.
And I've been to a random game at the MCG, the D's versus some other fucking Melbourne team on a Sunday, a game that no one cared about. It's a whole different thing. Like I'll go to see my team in my stadium, and it won't be anywhere near as good as going to see some team I don't care about on a Sunday afternoon at the MCG. It's just different.
It's a perfect example. The energy level and just the feeling in the air is just electric. And GABS Melbourne has a bit more of that. Especially with things like your Ferris wheel in the middle and those sorts of just outlandish. I mean, it may be different now. It's kind of, I know it's changed a little bit in the last couple of years, but anyway, it just
the building as well. I think probably had something to do with it. I think it's going back to the Carlton Gardens building.
Oh, is it the old Royal Exhibition?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
But okay. I wonder whether it's just more like. I shouldn't say this because I have a craft brewery in Queensland, but I just don't know how, into craft. I suppose it depends on what you say craft is, but I always just have a picture of Melbourne that they're just into this really crafty, small batch, interesting stuff. Like the Queensland breweries that do well, I don't know. They were I think we're sort of more. I don't know, like the Bolters and the Stone and Wood aren't Queensland, but the Bolters and Stone and Wood and the Black Ops and the Burley Brewing and these sort of companies, they're not real.
Your mates, your mates, it's kind of they're like, again, like local football teams. There is a real there's a marginal support for who's in their corner. It's this. Oh well, I got me local and dead set me local's my best place around. I love my local brewery. Nothing beats them, sort of thing. There's a little bit of that kind of supportist attitude. I think down in Melbourne, there's far more open-mindedness. It's like, if you aren't leveling up and if you aren't kicking ass, even if you are the closest brewery to my house, I will travel further to go and get this more desirable product. Yeah. Whereas there's a little bit more local pride. And I'm not saying that's potentially a good thing. I know Black Ops is a great example of huge amounts of pride in Black Ops supporters. Is massive. But if you go down to Melbourne, I just feel like there's less of that.
I think so. But it's also the history of everything that's happened there, how long it's been going on for, how many breweries there are, how much innovation, that can't be ignored. You can't kind of replicate that in a new location. Like the beer festivals that go well in Queensland. I suppose Beer and Cider, which doesn't happen anymore, but it was just basically a straight up music festival with breweries. and Crafted on the
Crafted's
Gold
great.
Coast is by
Yeah.
far the best one. And they strike a good balance, but it's not really a beer festival. You know what I mean? Like it's, there's Grandad Jacks are there. There's wine, there's cider. There's mainly just musicians. It's outdoors. It's on the Gold Coast. It's awesome, but you're not really going there to try 1,000 different beers. But in Melbourne, you can have a festival, whereas all it does is gives you 122 different beers, and there's enough people there to go all in for that. Whereas in Queensland, I don't know if there's enough people that are down for that.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think there's craft is a good example. I think you're going to get, let's say, two people that go, oh, we like craft beer. Let's get all our mates to go to this festival. So they buy 20 tickets and they all go and they all hang out. 18 of them are just happy drinking what their mates reckon's cool, right?
Yeah.
So if they think someone's cool, they're going to, let's hang out near that. Oh, they got a cool little stand or tent or whatever. They got games there. Oh, this is cool. I think that's why, like, it's interesting. An example is in Queensland, like Bolter have a lot of pride. Like everyone's like, Bolter have a huge fan base, despite the fact that they're not technically, like, they're not independent anymore. But it's like they're still got like the surfy crew and the kind of, grungy crew and the alt crew are kind of like, Bolter. And they're brewing fantastic beers and they're still the same great team. It's just that I think that in Melbourne, I think people that like great beer are going to go, they've still got good beers, but there's a bit more like, there's a bit more thought about that. Is it like
less loyalty? Like I always think like loyalty is a really good thing, but also like something new and experimental and different and better is also good. Maybe. Is it less loyalty in Melbourne, do you think?
Gee, that's a real hard question. I don't think so. I think that it's just that there's more. I think people are like loyal until you give them a reason not to be. For example, if a brewery's kind of hitting the mark and then they slip, people will kind of go, look, we like them, but we're not really buying them anymore until they up their game.
There's more fucking high standards, I think.
There's higher standards and more expectations. I think where Queensland, there's more forgiveness, right? So I do think that the breweries here can brew an average beer. Not all of them, but some of them can brew an average beer and kind of have apologies. It's like, she'll be right. No, you just don't waste good grog. Just get it down the gullet. Like, she'll be right. You know what I mean? And I think that there's a bit more of that. I kind of think that's cool in a way, because it's like, it's just don't judge, don't completely tear someone apart because they've just sort of, slipped up once or they've had an issue and they've, had to sort of go through or something. However, it does create a high standard that pushes up the quality in a way that people feel like they can't slip too much or they're going to get kind of bulldozed by the audience. So
well, it's interesting. Like, if you think about the other thing is, like, if you think about quality, the Queensland breweries, and if you include, Stone and Wood and Bolter and Black Ops and Green Beacon, if you look at like the ABAs and the performance in the award categories, Queensland breweries do really well in those things. And I think it is just I think it's basically just pure luck, but I think there's a bunch of sort of bigger breweries in this region that are quite good.
I think so too. I think the bigger breweries here take a lot of pride in quality control. And I think that's part of it, is just ensuring like things are super consistent. And I'm actually surprised coming back to Queensland how good the beer quality is up here. Like, it's definitely, since I moved down, everyone's leveled up and everyone's kind of
You mean since you've moved up?
Yeah, since I've moved back up. Since I've moved back up, all the breweries have matured, and I think like the quality control and the consistency and just everything is it's far better than it was when I moved down to Melbourne initially. So
100%. All right. Well, we better get to this news because
absolutely.
This is kind of what we try to do in the show. We go through the news and we give our own opinions for whatever it's worth. I wanted to kick it off with, because last week we had the story of Brewdog, and you might have listened to that. I think you said you listened to last week's episode. The James giving up an absolute shitload of shares for staff members, and Hendo's immediate reaction was, well, it's to do with being members of the Brewers Association. So he's not here. So I'll take this opportunity to dead wrong his comment. And I haven't thought of a name for this segment yet, but I think it's important that we have a segment where if we get something wrong, one of the 12 tells us and we're held accountable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we've probably said something wrong on this show. And if we are, then tell us.
I noticed something in last week's episode too, that was, you guys were debating, well, it's not wrong, but you guys were debating the pronunciation of, like, it was like a Mexican word or something like that in one of the beers. And Hendo said, "Oh, I've been to Rio or wherever.
Yes,
I know how to pronounce that." That name of that beer was it's actually from The Simpsons. It's like so it's the name of it is referencing when Homer goes to, it's like the chili cook-off, and there is a insanity pepper from the Cucamonga Wonga or whatever it is, and like they make up this kind of false, I think it's a false name. See, I could be wrong.
See, you could be wrong.
I could be wrong, but they say this crazy name.
Okay.
And then Hendo's like, "Oh no, it's this," but I'm not sure. I think that's just one of those things. I went, hang on, that's from The Simpsons. So I wasn't sure that you guys picked up on that. And
okay. Well, see, this is why we need this segment, because what you just said then could have been wrong, and someone will do the research.
I know, and that's fine. I'm okay to be pulled up on it, but I heard that, and that was my thinking. And I say a lot of things too that I kind of have. I might be told by someone else, and you kind of, it's like Chinese whispers. You're kind of passing off information that you believe is correct, but it could be slightly wrong. So I'm always happy to be corrected. I try to learn as I go. So
yeah, I think that's good, because in a podcast like this, we're not really doing a whole lot of research. Let's be honest. So you got another beer there? What are you working with?
I do. So this is just a simple one. This is just, simple. I shouldn't say that. It's a rice lager from Rocky Ridge.
Oh, nice.
They did send me this one, and I'm really grateful, because I really like getting lagers, especially since I've moved back to Queensland. Like, it's just I'm just liking drinking them a lot more lately. They're sort of easier on my body, like they're not as heavy and gluggy and really refreshing. And this is a really nice beer. So
can I get a photo of you with that one? Because I've been chatting to the guys from Rocky Ridge. They looked after us amazingly when we were in WA. Legendary. Crispy. I think I had that when I was there. They were the ones that had the Grzycki.
Oh, okay. That doesn't surprise me. I got this package from them, and it's absolutely loaded. Like, there's 2 of their 24-hour kettle barrel-aged barley wines in there. I thought of bringing one on here, but I thought it was a bit big for a Tuesday night. But like, they're doing some good stuff, like mixed fermentation, sour stuff, and but also like nailing all these classic styles, and then mixing up classic styles, oak aging, pilsners, and all sorts of things. So, and anyway, but I like what they do. I think they're kind of underrated. That goes for a lot of those WA breweries that are we don't see a lot of them over here, but when we do, it's like, damn, they're good.
Well, stay tuned. You might see a Rocky Ridge over here.
Soon. Hit up Ricky for a chat, and we'll see. I might have to tag him or send him a link to this. So.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So let's just dead wrong Hendo, because Hendo's concern was that Brewdog were doing this to maintain some kind of craft beer definition.
Okay.
And again, I haven't done a lot of research, so I could be dead wrong about this dead wrong, but I'm looking at the Brewers Association in America. Independent means less than 25% is owned or controlled by a beverage alcohol member. So that wouldn't be the case for Brewdog regardless. This current thing doesn't impact ownership by sorry.
No, you're right.
By a major it doesn't actually change anyone else's equity other than
Right.
James's and the staff. So that's out.
Okay.
But they wouldn't have been non-craft before this or after this. So dead wrong, Hendo. I think that's enough. That's enough, isn't
That's
it?
enough. That's
Oh,
enough.
is that enough?
I'm not going to chime in because I'm not too across this. So I'll happily sit out of it. But I think you should just dead wrong him and just be done with it. So dead wrong, Hendo.
Dead wrong.
I'm with you. You're
Let's
wrong.
move on.
And I'm happy to say wrong. Although that might that might not help for Brewdog sponsorship if you even want it. But anyway, keep moving on.
Well, yeah,
Well,
I'm working on that. I've got a friend who works there, and she's been happy to give me samples as an owner of a venue that can stock other artisanal products. She's given me samples. She's been very reluctant to call them sponsorship,
right?
Because it wouldn't be the right thing to do.
Okay.
But if she can give me samples and I can give some of those samples to Hendo, then we could have a Brewdog sponsorship. I don't know. I can't predict the future.
What's the difference between getting some samples and sponsorship?
Well, that's the thing. Like we use the word sponsorship as a bit of a joke. It's kind of like anyone who gives us free beer is a sponsor.
Right. I kind of assumed that was a bit of a piss take. Like you're a sponsor, but you're sending us, $12 worth of beer and we're talking about it for an hour. So it's kind of like it's kind of a joke.
Yeah.
but it's just playing fun at the whole, game of the whole thing. So
yes.
But anyway.
Stay tuned for Brewdog sponsoring this podcast. It might not happen anytime soon, but you never know. Never know. All right. Story number 1. Brew Mildura in administration. Now, I normally send these to Hendo. I didn't send these to you, but I put them in the group and I tagged you. So I'm hoping you kind of saw these.
I did see them all. I went through them all briefly and a lot of, we're happy to start with this one.
Yeah. So this one came in to my inbox from Business News Australia. So it just came in this afternoon. It must be freshish, but I don't really know what to say. It seems to me that Broo, who we've talked about a little bit, we don't talk about them too much because it just seems like an entire train wreck of an organization, and I don't want to put down another brewery.
Yeah,
but there just doesn't seem to be any other way to see this. But yeah, it seems like the brewery that they bought, with big dreams of turning it into a production site and impacting this region in a positive way, has now gone into receivership along with the product that they were making there. And the whole thing seems a little weird because it seems like the founder kind of stepped away from the organization, but now runs Brew Beer, whereas this Mildura brewery and the beer they were brewing there, the Australia Draft, is into receivership. But
okay,
it was the same organization, and
right?
This organization has gone out of business, and the other organization is still there.
I think it's just this gets posted a lot on the Beer Thread or BT Underground group. Just how much of a shit show it is, and how it's. I think people almost describe it as the gift that keeps on giving. In terms of, this is people that find this funny. I mean, you can choose whether you find it funny or not, but there's just story after story of it's like a train wreck that keeps on crashing,
Yes.
And I
think it's coming. I think it's coming pretty close to an end. It must.
I think that the one I read today, just briefly looking at the share prices, I think they went down from I can't remember. I think it was like 39 cents a year ago to like 0.1 or something cents or something stupid like that. So it's not looking good. You might want to clarify that, but it was just.
You could get dead wrong for that.
I probably will get dead wrong for that, but it was not looking good.
I'm going to look up the share price right now.
All right. It's just, I think I may not know what I'm talking about here.
No, I have. I'm pretty sure I have them saved in my thing here. Here we go. Brew Limited. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if anyone's going to watch this on YouTube, but it's not looking too good. But so market cap 8 million. Yeah, I think it was at about 12. So 6 months ago, it was. Yeah, it was at 2. Yeah, it's savage.
Yeah.
This is a thing, right? Like equity crowdfunding gets a bad rap. But this is a company that is a listed company on the stock exchange that is clearly a fucking train wreck of a company. And I don't know, like, how is anything worse than that? Like you've got basically private companies where you know nothing about anything and you're just guessing. And you've got the ASX where everything is transparent and everything is legitimate and everything's high end and everything's perfect. And that's Brew and Mighty Craft and Gage Roads, who have got in today's episode as well. There's only 3 on there. Brew's a fucking train wreck. Mighty Craft's super interesting, and Gage is doing really well. But how is this ASX structure better than just equity crowdfunding? Like with equity crowdfunding, you get to see everything, and it's these companies that are ambitious. They're trying to make something. If it doesn't work out, okay, fine. But you've got companies live on the ASX who don't work out year after year after year after year that are just crashing and doing what seems to be extremely dodgy shit. That's worse, right?
It does seem worse to me, but I think the biggest crime is people not doing their due diligence before they throw money at whatever investment they're going at. And I think an unfortunate one is the Bucket Boys situation. I mean, that kind of fell apart really badly. But I remember sort of speaking to a few people in the early days, and those were their concerns. And I kind of felt like, gee, if you're going to go and invest thousands of dollars, at least do your research. Just make sure you know what you're doing. Make sure everything's on track. Like, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think, I guess, like with new businesses, for me, I feel like all new businesses are more than likely to fail. And I know it's not really something that people want to hear, but business is basically impossible. That's where I start from. Like, it's basically impossible. And if you're a new business, you get people around you, you try to have a crack at it, you hope it goes well. And if you're open and honest about the risks and what you're doing, and if people are into it, then that's sweet. But if you're an established business and brand on the ASX, it's different. It's different to do an equity crowdfunding round where you're like, this could be 10x what we were. Like, we did this when we started. Like, this could be 100x what we are now. It also could be 0. We think it's going to be 100x. If you think that, then jump on board.
High risk, high reward sort of thing. And
but if you're a listed company on the ASX, like where could Brew possibly go from here?
I never understood it, because it's like, didn't they just have like one beer, like a Brew lager or something like that, or an Australian lager? And it's just, I just couldn't get it. I mean, I don't know. I guess
I heard a word for it today. Actually, I hope I remember the word. God, what was the phrase? I can't remember the phrase. Anyway, I listened to a podcast on Smartless. Have you listened to that podcast before?
No.
It's Jason Bateman from Ozark.
Oh yeah.
And from everything else, and Will Arnett. They had Mike Myers on it. It's a podcast run by actors, and they get actors and stuff on there. And he was talking about there's a type of like nationalism. I can't think of the word he used, but it's kind of like the export version of what it's like. It's the Fosters of beer.
Yeah.
It's like in Australia, we don't drink Fosters, but we export that to the world because that's the projection we make of what Australia is like.
Yeah, sure.
Toss another shrimp on the barbie type thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's what Brew was. It was kind of like we're going to have a kangaroo and we're going to call it Brew. And this is going to, it's
Yeah.
like Aussie, but it's not really for people here. We're going to export this to the world as an
Yeah.
Australian drink that
It's-
isn't
it's-
actually something they drink in Australia.
Almost though you can find this in souvenir shops in the USA.
Yeah.
You know, like it's almost it's just a novelty beer kind of thing that we can kind of claim as an Aussie product, like a national icon Aussie product, which sort of, you know, I guess your VB and even Cooper's has got a bit of that in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny though, because I guess what's kind of funny in Australia is that like Better Beer have kind of done that for the Aussie market. Like they've kind of come along with like one beer. They had a stand at GABS and everything. Like it was,
Did they?
It was, yeah. You know what's funny? It's like they had this stand, and I was walking past it with my partner, and she was like, "Oh wow, they've styled it up. They had like, you know, breeze blocks from like a Palm Springs style house. Like
Nice.
they're real, like they're playing the trend game. Like it's like, and there was all these sort of hipsters hanging around, like drinking like their one beer. I'm thinking, wow, like
So it's not even a joke anymore. It's just
it's like an unironic, hey, this is
Yeah.
a beer for people that just want a beer at a festival.
It's
Like
fucking awesome.
it's
Good
just
on 'em.
kind of incredible.
It is.
It's kind of genius marketing in a way. It's just
Yeah.
the product that no one wanted or needed, but it's in your face. You know what I mean?
And
Like,
you got to give it up. I mean, like we said on last week's episode, like it could be the number one independent beer in the country. Like someone dead wrong me on that, but like what beer, if they're doing close to 8 million liters a year, what single beer in the country is doing more volume than that? That's independent,
oh, yeah.
other than Cooper's.
Yeah.
There's not one.
Yeah, it's a good question. Good question. I don't know what liters, you know, things like, yeah, okay. I keep thinking of beers that have recently become non-independent.
But even Bolter were not doing anywhere near that when
Pacific
they were
Ale
independent.
might have been.
Pacific
I
Ale
don't know.
was, but they're not no longer independent.
Yeah, so I actually don't know. I actually can't think of anything.
I'm pretty sure they're number one. I think Single Fin would be the only one that would be close.
Yeah.
From the limited knowledge that I
yeah.
have. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. I probably would agree with that. And if someone's listening, if they reckon they have a couple of contenders, mention them, because I'm interested to know. It's good for your knowledge.
Yeah.
So,
All right, I've got this. It's off the.
you got to go.
Wait, let's look at the date here. Okay, it's not off the new canning line, but whatever. It was free. Not.
I love that you're talking about it like that's how I sound. Oh, I got this for free.
Yeah.
Like it's my brewery, but you know.
Yeah.
Still stoked about your own beers. It's good. It's important.
Yeah. All right. So on the topic of equity crowdfunding versus ASX listed companies, DrinkWest is a brand owned by Tai Tuivasa and Nathan Cleary and a bunch of other high profile kind of celebrities, and they were doing a crowdfunding. When we mentioned it on this podcast, we looked at their crowdfunding page, and I think it said minimum target maybe 500 or 700, maximum target 5 million. And if they were to raise 5 million, that would completely obliterate the brewery crowdfunding record. So we put it in the group, and we put a call out to what's your prediction for how much they're going to raise.
Saw this.
I actually don't know when this started. I think it started the day after the last episode launched. So I guess it's been going for a week and a bit, maybe.
It's you posted it on April 20th.
Right. No, but I mean the actual live campaign, because it's live now. I'm just looking at it. I don't actually know when it went live, but I can see what it's up to and whatnot.
Yeah, okay. I see what you're saying.
But the headline I saw was that hit their maximum target. So I thought, holy shit.
Oh, they've hit maximum. No, it says no. Hang on.
Oh, no. The email I got from Birchall was they were within a small amount of hitting their maximum target. And I thought, holy shit, have they raised $5 million? But that's not 100% true. But anyway, let me go back to the thread because we'll see what people predicted.
Yep.
There is still 16 days to go in this though, so we'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, I'm on the thread now, and I'm seeing.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I'll let you read it. I'll let you read it out.
All right. So I said 1.5. Hendo said 1.2. Luke Cooper 750. Ryan Fullerton 350. That's harsh. Sam says hopefully $0. I don't want that negativity in my life, Sam. Come on, dude. Dave Croft said they'll go the whole way, but that was when it was 5 mil. Leah Hill says, who was a name I don't think is Leah. I think but anyway, says 3.6. James Arthur Davidson says, I think they will get the whole amount and break the record. So that'll be 5 milli. Phil Sharp says 900K. Bo Curtis says 2 million. Star swear words will carry it. Okay. Well, I feel that's a little negative, but anyway. So looking at the raise right now, it's up to 1.881 million of a maximum of 2 million.
I don't understand the maximum, because if they're trying to beat 5 million, why have they got a maximum of 2? What's the deal there?
Well, it changed.
It changed because why? Like what?
Well, I'm guessing they didn't. I don't fully understand how the EOI process works, but they have an expression of interest, and they kind of gauge the interest. So my guess is they didn't get enough interest, and this could Matt, who's from Birchall, could dead wrong me on this, but I'm guessing they didn't have enough interest. They kind of realized, okay, well, there's no way in the world we're getting 5 million. Let's drop it to 2, and the story.
And then if they hit their target, they get the money. Is that the same?
Well, they're getting the money either way. As long as they hit the minimum, they get the money either way. But
what's the point?
It could be a good story if they say that the raise is 2 million. If they get to 1.2, they can spend the month chasing the rest. And probably get to 2.
Free advertising, because if all over the world they're like, these UFC fighters or whoever they are, raised $2 million for this project. Blah 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 blah. Good brewery advertising, etc. etc. It's interesting. I don't think that the negativity on those posts is like malicious. I think it's just like, it's probably just frustration that, like, they're saying that status is more important than quality, and I think that's what people have kind of got an issue with. And I know it's kind of like novelty to go, hey, awesome, like, this and this, like, you've got UFC and NRL players, but I guess it pisses people off when, like, they know genuinely good small operators who are humble are struggling, and you get this amount of money thrown into what could be an undefined quality beer.
That's fair. Yeah.
I mean, that's on the support side of, like, the people in, say, the beer and the Boston Brewer podcast group who are, like, literally saying, like, oh man, this is why we're a bit pessimistic. But at the same time, like, if you're talking, like, if you've got the status, use it kind of thing, then, like, good on them for sort of doing that. Like, I mean, it's power. There's power in reach, isn't there? So
it's real interesting. Like I always, like, when I first got into business, I saw lots of examples of celebrities starting businesses, and that were just disastrous. It just didn't work. Whereas it seems different now. Like, all of gins and vodkas and breweries and everything being started by celebrities, they all seem to go pretty fucking well.
They do, and it's so much like, it's what I've noticed too is, like, you might throw on a show on Netflix, right? Like a reality show or something. It's like who's this knob? So you look them up on Instagram, and it's like,
I know,
and they're like sponsored by a seltzer, right? And it's like every post is like, and get this. I was looking up the other day, the indie rock band, The Strokes.
Dude, they're my favorite band.
Okay. So Albert Hammond Jr.
Yes, I know. His album's awesome. I listen to his
I agree.
It's awesome.
I like The Strokes. I like his.
Are you going to say some bad shit about?
I'm saying when I went to his Instagram the other day,
Careful.
He's sponsored by
He's not
a
peddling
seltzer.
seltzer. Fuck
He
me.
I'm telling you. And this is just kind of what's up, right? These guys are in a position where they're like, okay, well, we're on tour. It's kind of crazy. We're earning X money and Y money. However, like a bit of a side hustle can be that we've got 20 million followers. And if we just happen to go wearing a Levi's jacket, drinking a such and such seltzer, and, you know, sitting on a whatever couch, IKEA couch, and there is like paid partnerships to be sort of, you know, done, then these people are getting in on it.
I just think that's revolting.
I know, me too. It's annoying when you kind of go, hey, I'm a business person. However, like these artists who I respect for their artistry, when they are sort of dipping their toes into these sorts of ponds. I just thought I'd mention that. It's a real interesting one.
You ruined my faith in fucking musicians and humanity, I feel like, with that comment, because I've thought the same thing. That the podcast I mentioned before, that Smartless one, it's like it's got Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, Sean from bloody Sean, whatever fucking that guy's from, all the famous shows. These guys, I feel, they're all mates for starters. They basically just catch up every week and talk. They're extremely successful. Like, I don't know how you could be more successful than Jason Bateman. Like, who's fucking more successful than that guy? Like, he's had hit after hit after so many decades. He's like 90 years old. He looks like he's 20. He's fucking brilliant.
Also really respected because
super respected.
Basically
he's
everything
very good.
is done as solid.
And they have this podcast where they interview other people, and every 5 minutes there's ads, and they read the ads. I'm like, I know I shouldn't hate advertising because I don't hate business, but I just think, at what point do you get to the point where you don't need to do that? You can just, it's so fucking easy to upload a podcast. It doesn't cost any money.
Yeah.
Like, at what point do you not need to have ads for fucking dick pills on your podcast? Like,
I kind of agree. Like, I mean, if you're really successful in other things, like, why not just kind of have an outlet where it's honest?
Well, that's what content used to be. Like, that when I started getting into this, that's what podcasts were. It was dominated by people who were just the most creative people because they wanted to create the most stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now it's just celebrities. I sound bitter and old, don't I?
I kind of feel it because working in digital and media and stuff like that, I went through that. I've been there really early in, say, the Twitter game, watched it all kind of play out. And I used to run a few blogs and things like that, and have seen the way like SEO has changed, the way that social media has taken over the dominance of advertising. And it tires me out, even though I know that the company that pays me gets money for helping companies do these things. However,
but see, I thought it was going in a good direction. Like when I first got into SEO, it was like all link farms and paid links and fucking bullshit keyword optimization and keyword stuffing and all that kind of shit. And like I at the time was like, no, actually what works better for me is creating a lot of useful shit, right? And eventually you're useful enough, your brand is valuable enough, Google is smart enough to figure out what is valuable and what isn't, and you outrank your competitors because your stuff is more quality. And that's the direction it was going in. And I feel like online content has kind of gone in that direction, except that now that you go into Google and it's just all ads. But social media has taken over, and social media is just all about, I don't know, celebrity and and just shit that makes you angry and turns you on or fucking gives you a dopamine rush. Like, I don't know. It's like the quality of content is.
And that's, I agree, because I went through the same period. And this might all be a bit foreign to some of the people listening, but I went through the same shit, right? Because I was there with all that keyword crap that turned into, hey, a cleaner blog with cleaner coding, with less keyword shit and better content, with more views, with more comments, with more natural engagement, was the better source of organic SEO.
Yeah,
So
because
I went
Google
through-
worked out that people want better content.
Yeah, correct.
But Facebook
And-
worked out that actually people don't want better content, that they want their emotional triggers pulled in the worst possible ways to keep them more engaged.
And this is why it's so shit now, because like Instagram started doing all those reels that was just like, some guy I don't know, skinny, tiny kid who punches a bigger guy or something. And it's like, oh, whoa, what's going on here? And then those sorts of, or like a girl that was doing the splits and she was, anyway, you know what I mean? Like
I do know what you mean. Yeah.
I trigger things that people go, oh, what else is happening here? Anyway, those sorts of things are now creeping into Facebook, and like now you're seeing in Facebook all these kind of like video reel things. Like it's the when TikTok came in and started almost infesting that those mini videos into everything, because they do engage people. People can't look away. And
yeah, but at least the TikTok, like my very limited experience with TikTok is like most of the videos on TikTok are kind of uplifting and fun, and they're people who are talented. Whereas like the shit that gets your attention on Facebook and Instagram, it's just kind of like just appealing to your worst nature.
Yeah, I agree. I tend to agree. A lot of the time it's just, I don't know. It's like, do you remember like back in the day, you might be old enough to remember this one, Australia's Funniest Home Videos?
I'm offended by that. Yeah, I definitely remember them.
It's kind of like that, but they're not always funny. But they're videos that like you sort of are watching and thinking, oh, what's going to happen next? And there's a lot of shit. There's a lot of things, and they find ways to get to that part of your brain that you get drawn into them, and they're just ugly, and you start to get the shits with them because you're like, you're trying to pull me into a corner that I'm trying to actually get away from. It's just ugly content.
That's true. And we've pulled our listeners of this podcast into a corner that has nothing to do with beer.
Absolutely. I know. We're going down a rabbit hole that we're probably too far.
All right. Well, good luck to DrinkWest. $1.8 million raised. And by the end of the campaign, we'll see who's right. But I feel like, I don't know, based on that thread, Bo Curtis, 2 million. He's looking pretty good. I said 1.5, not too far off, depending on how they go. Yeah. I might win a fucking Boss and the Brewer shirt. I don't know. All right. Fuck, it's going to be a long night if I don't get through these pretty quickly.
Yeah, I was going to say we've got a lot, and we've rambled a lot. So I was actually thinking before we got onto this, I thought you and Hendo have this strong dynamic. I thought, once I get on, what am I going to say? So I'm surprised how much we've been able to find these niche things. I think we've got a bit in common with media and beer. So anyway, continue on, and we'll see if we can power through some of the core topics here.
Yeah, we'll try to power through the rest of them. So Good Drinks, otherwise known as Gage Roads, who I went to their brewery in WA. I was super impressed. I don't know. I suppose if I think when I first sort of came across Gage Roads, because they weren't that big in Queensland, it was probably 5 years ago, and I kind of looked at all their brands. I tried their beers. I saw that, kind of part owned by Woolies, and they were doing a lot of contract brewing, and they were on the ASX. Everything was public. I kind of thought that this is probably not going to go too well. But to their credit, I think they've fucking smashed it in so many ways. Like the brewery's fucking solid. The venues they've opened up are really good. They're brewing an enormous amount of beer. There's still a lot of contract brewing in there, but if you look at that article, they're looking at doing $19 million for the million liters for the year, which would, I imagine, if Stone and Wood hadn't have sold, Gage Road would still be bigger than Stone and Wood, if you consider all of their, it's not only their brands, but everything they're doing. The venue at Freo is incredible. And
yes, funnily enough, I was meant to be there next week because my partner's heading to Freo for some store openings for her company, and so I would have had free accommodation and all this sort of stuff. I decided not to go for a couple of reasons, but regardless of that, I was really, really eager to check out that venue and the Little Creatures, which is nearby. The venue looks absolutely insane on the water there. And it's just
it's
like
awesome. And I was like, for my whole bloody adult life, excited to check out Little Creatures. And after going to Gage Roads and then to Little Creatures, Little Creatures was incredibly underwhelming.
Yeah.
It's just new and fresh and bright. The beers were good. Fucking killing it. Good on them.
Yeah.
And these results are amazing. They're doing an amazing job.
I rate their beers.
Gage Roads do send me some beers, they do. And they've taken, it's what's really funny, and we don't have heaps of time for yabbering on, but one thing I was going to say is that when I was maybe in my early 20s, the beer I would buy by the case used to be Atomic Pale Ale, which it was just
because it was Gage Roads back then.
Gage Roads did Atomic Pale Ale, and it was about $42 a case. Really nice pale ale. It was good staple, and anyway, since then they've turned it, I think, into the Atomic Beer Project. So that's their more adventurous beers. So they might do like a double red IPA or something with something a bit more interesting or a bit more challenging, like a cold IPA or whatever they do, and release them in 440ml cans. So they're definitely they've got a bit of a thing going on different facets where they've kind of got their core range and they've got their more adventurous stuff. So good on them. And their beers are basically everything they've sent me has been really solid.
And I think part of my sort of initial negativity around Gage Road is just the fact that when you're in Queensland and you buy, it's the same thing we were talking about before. Like if you buy, a brewery from out of state and you're getting it at a bottle shop that kind of stores it warm, and you're not vigilantly looking at the dates and whatnot. Like you're tasting something completely different to what it actually tastes like. Yeah. And the beer I had a single fin at the brewery at the mouth of the river in Freo. It wasn't the best beer I've had in my life. Like the beer is pasteurized. It's not super aromatic. It's not super crafty, but it was fucking good. Mm. And that's probably why they're bloody successful. Like it's same as Cooper's, same as Stone and Wood.
I would say that's similar with Little Creatures. I think anywhere where you've got that big production brewery and you've sort of got the source nearby and whatever, that's where most of their kind of fan base is.
Right.
But they're exporting, I agree with you. I don't know many people, on the eastern side of Australia that necessarily talk about buying cases of single fit. I don't think I know anyone.
Exactly.
And nor do I, nor have I ever, and that's just the way it is. And I don't think people over the west side or the west side of Australia necessarily are buying, breweries from over here unless they really want to try something ambitious. So it's just the way it goes. It's almost like another country. It's probably like the east and west coast of the USA. Same kind of shit happens,
Yeah, I think my experience in WA is there's a lot of appetite for trying, more craftier, interesting beers that come from the other side of the country. But if you're going to buy a hazy, you're buying Biggie Juice for $55 a case, and that's what you're buying, type thing. If you're going to buy a pale, you're buying single fin.
Yeah. I couldn't disagree with that. I think that's what I understand from people as well. Yeah. And unfortunately, Biggie Juice over here, I haven't had the best experiences with it. I bought it a few times, and I like that beer. I know what that beer is, based on having it fresh. And it's just, unfortunately, it's kind of hard to get a fresh one over here these days, unless maybe it's on tap.
And that's the kind of beer you just have to drink it fresh. It's not going to be the same.
Yeah.
Fuck. I'm actually going to run out of time. I have to go in about 5 minutes.
That's fine. That's fine.
But let's
We're running
at
out of
least get
time,
through
mate.
the news.
Let's do it.
So there's an article on Brews News about the philosophy of beers, and I think I should have spent a bit more time looking at this. I feel like I say that every week, but it seems like I think Matt is over at Craft Beer Con in the US. Yes, US Craft Brewers Conference. And this article is about basically non-alc and beer and cannabis beer. And I suppose the thing that I read into this was that there was a statement about people, more than half people in the US think that cannabis is better for you than alcohol, and therefore the kind of cannabis or THC infused beers are more interesting to brewers than beer, because people think it's not as bad for you as alcohol. What do you think?
I don't know if I'm the best person to comment on this one, because I'm not like a big cannabis user. I think, though, a lot of people I know are, and they would probably think that, cool, cannabis, let's go, it's natural, etc., etc.
Right.
I sort of loosely agree with that prospect, but if you're talking about the effects of it, and that, look, it depends. If you're sort of talking hemping in a beer, I don't know, I've got no issues with it, but like, if you're sensitive to that, maybe it would be a bit eye-opening to have a beer that's kind of loaded with cannabis. I don't really know, to be honest. What do you reckon, though?
Yeah, I don't know. We had we had an interesting experience when we went to Portland, and when we went on our US trip. I think it was in 2018 or 19. It was quite a while ago. It was just before we opened BH2, and we went and we're like, oh, we're in Portland, might as well do like a marijuana, like a hop on brewery tour equivalent, but for weed. So we went to the dispensary. The guy who drove the van was blazed out of his mind the entire time. The fucking whole place smelled like weed. Like, went to breweries that like weed infused beers, and it was just weird. I don't know. Like one of the guys at the breweries was like, oh, I've got this recipe. You guys should take it to Australia because could crush it. And I was like, I don't know if we should be getting people fucked up on marijuana. I don't know.
I don't know, because I look, simply put, it's like, depends on you, right? I think
like alcohol is definitely bad for people as well. So.
It's just as it is, but like, it's depends on the individual and what's happening with their brain and how it's affected by the substance. And it's just a whole nother aspect to it all. If you start adding that there, then like, if it's me, if I drank 3 or 4 cans of something loaded with cannabis, being sensitive to it, I would probably just need to go home and have a sleep. It depends on you. And I really don't know. I think it's interesting, though. Like, it's definitely, and I can understand the younger generation are probably find their sensitivity to that is no different to alcohol. And therefore, like, what's better, what's worse, what's gonna, I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think Australia, it's been illegal in so many places for so long, people aren't as used to having it unless you're kind of, acquiring it on the down low or whatever. But like,
right,
in the USA, it's like really common, and people are much more kind of, it's much more social. You go to San Francisco and it's like, it's really quite social to sort of, like you say, Portland, like, it's, you get used to it as a thing, like a beer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I might as well go out and say it on this podcast. I'm not a fan of it. I just think it is kind of antisocial. I think it's not particularly good for people, and I don't think alcohol, I guess, is not that good for you either. But I feel like generally alcohol companies are reasonably honest about the fact that it's, it can be problematic, and you have to be aware of that stuff. You got RSA and all that, but like the whole theme around marijuana seems to be that it's perfectly natural. It's perfectly good for you. There's no problems with it. I think that's complete bullshit. So I don't know, maybe it's just like the cycle of how this is going, that at some point they'll be like, okay, it's not that bad for you. That's definitely true. Like, it probably shouldn't be illegal, but it is not great for you in a lot of ways, I think.
Look, my experiences, it throws my brain off too much. Yeah. That's just me. Whereas alcohol is far more gradual in the way that it's my fault if I drink too much, but if I'm smoking, I almost feel like it's not my fault. I might just have a crazy drag of and feel really out of it and not be able to. That's just me. But I'm sure there's many people who find the opposite. I know some people find it balances them out. They're too right. Over the top, or they're too fast until that actually just, it puts them on a regular pace. So I don't know. And that's almost, I feel like this is where the discussion could almost delve into scientific kind of effects versus statistics and all the rest of it. But yeah. I don't know.
This is not drug advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, we should wrap up because I actually do have to get out of here. Fine. Let's wrap up with just a shout out to the World Beer Cup.
Bucketies.
Bucketies. The Pale Ale, number 2 on third best session beer in the world, which is incredible. And Stone and Wood.
Have you tried any of their beers? Bucketies? No, nor have I. And when I read this earlier, I thought I probably should order some beers from them.
Yeah, maybe. 100%. Stone and Wood Green Coast got a silver. Urban Alley took out a bronze. But I think we've talked about awards on these shows before. I think this is actually one of the award shows, and dead wrong me on this if I'm not right, but where like the gold or the silver are the actual first or second. It's not, you don't get 1,000 gold medals and 1,000 silver medals. This is third best session beer in the entire world if you come third in that category. It's a big deal.
It does sound like a big deal. I'm surprised I hadn't heard of this one, but anyway, good on your Bucketies.
Good on your Bucketies. All right, I got to go. This has been great, man. This is actually it's kind of dragged on. I was worried it was going to go for 25 minutes, but we didn't even get to the questions. But
well, usually I let you guys do your thing, but I've maybe had more chance to be assertive today and just have a chat. And I think it's segued us into some interesting topics that maybe Hendo wouldn't allow, because
that's true. That's true. The boss man gets what the best boss man wants.
Yeah. No, I just think it's been interesting because we've been quite happy to maybe deviate from the norm, and there's been some good chats. I've probably definitely said some things that I'm going to get pulled up on with my random comments and things, but hey, we'll see what happens.
The dead wrong segment next week is going to be an entire episode.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I should let you go. If you feel like it, maybe we can do a Perko episode or something when the Perko gets put into cans from CV. Or something
keen.
Like that.
Yes, very keen. I'd love to. We'll get them on. I'd love to catch up with those guys.
Good call. Let's do that.
All right. Love your work, mate. Thank you for filling in. Cheers
and
to
thanks for having me. And shout out to Hendo, who's hopefully listened to this point. Sorry if you have.
All right. Cheers, mate.
Okay, cheers, mate. All right. See you, bye.